Hi, this is Lisa and Ron Beres of Green Nest at greennest.com, and you're listening today to Dave's Gone By on WGBD.
Welcome back to Dave's Gone By, and we're celebrating Earth Day, and I guess you could also say Green Day, even though I'm not very familiar with the band. The last album by Green Day was the very famous American Idiot, and we tend to be idiots, in this country at least, and probably a lot of other Western European countries, about the ecology and about what we're eating and living in and breathing and sleeping on and in. Don't want to be an alarmist. I don't want to be one of those panic people. But there are probably some pretty easy ways and steps that we can make our lives a little bit healthier. I mean, there are ways we can make our lives a lot healthier just by blowing up all the McDonald's. But I've got a couple of people on the phone with me, Lisa and Ron Beres, and they're from a company called Green Nest, and they're going a little far afield from what we normally do on Dave's Gone By, but again, to celebrate Earth Day, and because I do believe in trying to live a little bit healthier, they're going to give us some tips in different ways as to not only telling us what might be around us that's killing us, that we can control, but also what we can control in what we eat and do that'll keep us living a little bit longer. Did I kind of get that all right, Lisa Ron?
You sure did.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Well, good. Well, I mean, your thing is creating healthy homes. So explain a little bit about that, please.
Okay. We actually got started in this business because I personally suffered a lot of illness, such as fatigue and hormone imbalances and flu-like symptoms, which nobody could diagnose after having been to about a dozen different doctors, and realized that it was the toxins in my home that were actually making me sick. I was eating healthy and exercising and doing everything else right, and it turns out that it was actually an overabundance of toxins in my home that were causing these illnesses.
Now, we're not talking about radon gas or asbestos here. We're talking about some other kinds of stuff?
Exactly. We're talking about everyday chemicals that are in every home that people are getting exposed to day after day, and this can also be in your office as well. And so we're not talking about extreme cases of mold or radon or anything like that. We're just talking about, a cumulative effect of toxins that build up over time in your body. And so we're here to help your listeners and show them ways that they can identify these toxins and take actions to remove the toxins from their home.
That's right. And, Dave, we actually put 5 things, 5 things that are making your home sick, or actually killing you ultimately, that we wanted to talk about.
Go for it. Well, name a couple.
Well, the first one is air. People don't realize this, but the average indoor air quality is 2 to 5 times or up to 100 times more polluted in the average home than the outdoor air. 2 is the water that we're drinking and showering in. We're getting inundated with chlorine, parasites, heavy metals, and so forth that are also wearing down the body.
Another one is formaldehyde. This is classified as a carcinogen by the World Health Organization. And formaldehyde is in everything in your house, from your cabinets to any pressed wood products to paint, carpeting, upholstery, you name it. The list goes on. And what happens is this outgasses into the air, and you breathe in these chemicals day after day. Another one is pesticides.
Right.
Pesticides are carcinogenic. They're hormone disruptors. They're linked to a lot of childhood leukemia and different illnesses like that.
But how do we even, I live on Long Island, and we tell our gardeners not to put pesticides on our lawn because, A, we have dogs and there are other dogs in the neighborhood and children too and stuff. But, I mean, there's so much already in the ground that it's leaching off from every other yard and from all the water anyway. I mean, what's the point of knowing what can kill us if there's not much we can actually do about it?
Well, there are things you can do about it, and that's the whole point of us talking about this today, is that this isn't a hopeless case. If you're in a situation where your neighborhood happens to be using pesticides, and you can try to get on the board of your association and fight for non-toxic means of pesticide use. Get with your neighbors and explain how these pesticides are linked to illnesses and try and take action that way. If you don't want to do that, you can control your own house. You can control what you're putting on your own yard and, exposure that you're getting in your own home, whether it be through sprays or baits or anything like that. If you're eliminating your own exposure day to day, you're going to be a lot better off, even if you're getting very slight exposures, through parks or yards or things like that.
And what about on the fruits and vegetables? that
fruits
we get.
and vegetables, yeah, that's a very large source of pesticide exposure. So we recommend trying to eat organic whenever you can.
So it really does make a difference? It's not they're charging $1 more and you're basically getting the same thing?
No, it really does. And I think, just what you said, the perception is, oh, it's more expensive. Why should I do that? Well, it's your health. Cancer can be expensive, too, if you get that, in the long run. So you have to look at the long-term costs of buying these things. And, also, if you do buy regular produce, wash it thoroughly. Really scrub it and wash it to get those pesticide residues off. But, ultimately, eating organic is the best bet because you're not going to get the pesticides anyway.
And what are some of the other killers that are basically in our homes that we can do something about? Okay,
carpeting is a big one. Almost everyone today has carpeting in their home.
Mm-hmm.
Carpeting is synthetic, and there is over 120 neurotoxic chemicals in carpeting, not to mention the tens of millions of microorganisms that, breed in the carpeting. One of the ways that these pesticides and dirt and debris and mold and all of this gets into your carpeting is actually through your shoes, believe it or not. Coming in and out of your house, you're tracking a lot of stuff on the bottom of your shoes, and you don't even realize it. So one thing is to, get in the habit of leaving your shoes by the door. That way you're, keeping a cleaner home, and you're not bringing in these pesticides and things like that. Another way is if you are remodeling or moving into a new house, consider not using carpeting, especially if you have allergies, because these, again, like I said, they're breeding grounds for a lot of microorganisms.
Even like the indoor-outdoor carpeting, or is that maybe a little better, but it's still, as opposed to a shag or a deep pile?
Yeah, because, it's a shorter pile. But ultimately, carpeting is carpeting, and it's synthetic, and it's going to have a lot of chemicals in it unless you're getting organic or natural means of carpeting, like a wool or something like that, and you know that it hasn't been heavily treated.
So did they pinpoint specifically what was making you sick? Because, a lot of people, or millions of people have carpeting, and millions of people eat they wash the regular fruits and vegetables, and then they don't get what you got.
Right, that's right. Well, part of it is everybody is different. Some people have lower immune systems. Some people aren't going to get sick until years later. Believe it or not, it's a good sign if your body is showing you symptoms, because then you can do something about it. What's really scary is when you don't have symptoms and 20 years later you're diagnosed with cancer or something like that.
Right.
So regardless of whether you have symptoms or not, you can be assured that you are getting chemicals in your home. So you really need to be proactive and not reactive. Take a proactive approach to changing these things now rather than waiting till you're sick and then, having to react. What actually made me sick was really a combination of a lot of different things, such as brand new carpeting that was just installed. Mm-hmm. Carpeting is most toxic when it's brand new.
Well, that smell.
Smell, that new carpet smell, that whole new home smell, the new car smell, that's all toxic chemicals that are being released.
And polyurethane, I guess, on the floors, all that stuff.
Yep, polyurethane foam in your furniture and in your upholstery.
But do you live in a bubble now? No, really, seriously.
That's a good idea.
Right. Well, I don't, and that's the great thing is that once you make the changes to your home and you start to see, your health improve, whether it be something as simple as having more energy, and just overall feeling better. Once you start lowering the toxic load in your life, you don't have to be as neurotic, so to speak. You're building up your own immune system, so you're going to be more less susceptible to diseases and things like that. But we're just really living in a toxic society today, where there's just so many chemicals. 100,000 new chemicals have been introduced since World War II.
Wow.
Into our existence. So we're being bombarded. And if you aren't proactive and you aren't taking notice, chances are it's going to catch up with you in some way or another. Hi, this is Lisa and Ron Beres of Green Nest at greennest.com, and you're listening to Dave's Gone By at WGBB.
Well, the good news, Dave, is we have 10 steps to creating a healthy home.
Mm-hmm.
We recently just released a CD called Learn to Create a Healthy Home, and we can walk through your listeners the 10 steps that we have.
Well, give us a couple of the steps, and then they've got to buy the CD to find out the others. And by the way, we're talking with Lisa and Ron Beres of the Green Nest Company. You can get them at greennest.com. Give us a couple of those steps, please, Ron.
Well, one of the things to go back on, we mentioned air before, how that was actually potentially killing you in your home. Well, that's our first step in creating a healthy home, and that's to create cleaner air for you. Some simple things you can do is just increasing the ventilation of your home. Open up a window. Get ventilation going. Prior to 1970, the average air exchange in a home was once every hour. Now it's once every 5 hours or even worse.
Oh. Okay.
Homes today are so tightly sealed for energy efficiency, but what's happening is we're not getting any fresh air in.
Add an air purifier, specifically with the HEPA.
So are those also for real?
Those are absolutely for real. And what you're probably thinking of is ionizers, which we don't recommend at all, those type of air purifiers. But to get an air purifier with a HEPA, HEPA filter is your best bet.
And how often do you have to change that filter and deal with that? Well,
it really depends which unit you're talking about, but some of the models that we carry, ultimately you're changing a pre-filter once every year.
Oh. So it isn't like once a month or anything like that?
No, not at all.
Those are some of there's lower expensive models you can buy, at your local Walmart or whatever, and, a lot of them aren't as high quality. They don't filter out as many chemicals and toxins. But, we carry a higher quality purifier, and, you don't have to change the air filter as often.
Cool.
So, yeah.
And, I'll also chime in with a very different kind of a health thing. My wife used to have migraines, and she also used to get the sniffles and different kinds of little ailments 2 or 3 times a month. And she changed her life, not by removing carpet, we don't use many chemicals in our home at all. Basically hand soap is about it. I'm not going to tell you how we use that. But anyway, but it involved her eating, and she does eat organic, and she cut out most of the meat. And the usual stuff that they tell you about dieting helped a whole lot. So that's also part of it for just your eating habits and your exercise habits in general. It really does, cliche as it is, obvious as it is, and unfortunately it's not the lazy way. It involves a whole lifestyle change as well. But what are some of the things that lazier people of those 10 steps can do that involve maybe a one-time thing or don't require daily or monthly monitoring?
Well, like Ron mentioned, the air purifier, you don't really, once you put that in your house and put it on, you really don't have to worry about it until it's time to change your filter.
Right, and other stuff.
Okay. Ron, you want to talk about water?
Yeah, sure. That's a great idea. A lot of people don't realize the contaminants that are in their local water supply are just coming from their home. For example, one thing you can do is, first of all, you need to identify what are the potential problems in your water. And you can do that by getting in touch with your local water utility company or doing simple tests yourself. Test to see if there's too much chlorine in the water. One of the things you do once you identify the contaminant within your water, whether it be a different chemical or lead or just chlorine, you find a filter method that is best for your home. There's carbon filter models out there. They're really good at removing, like I mentioned before, chlorine. These are the common pitchers under the sink models you can get for your home. This is a great way to eliminate a good chunk of your the contaminants from the water and just to protect yourself.
Does boiling water remove everything?
I'm sorry?
Does boiling water remove everything?
No,
it's just making
doesn't.
Tea and stuff. It's still in there. It's taking out some other impurities, but some of the stuff you're talking about would still be in there even if you boiled it.
Well, boiling water doesn't do a great job of killing bacteria and parasites, but if there's chemicals in there, they're not going to go anywhere.
Lead and things like that, and the heavy metals.
That's right. And so, depending on what you want to take out, there's different filtration methods. There's reverse osmosis. We recommend that in certain cases.
I don't even know what that is, but it sounds nice.
There you go.
It's a more expensive, usually in a 3 or 5 stage process, which goes under your sink. So it's a little more cumbersome, but if you've really got a bad water supply coming in, you definitely want to use something a little more thorough like that.
So have you noticed that people in general are getting more or less green and health conscious over the past couple of years?
More. Yeah, it's really great to see that people are becoming more and more aware. And, knowledge is power.
Not in the White House, but everywhere else, I think.
Right.
Well, Lisa and Ron Beres, it's been really, really interesting and fun and good to talk to you about all these things. Again, if people want to find out more about creating healthy homes and ways to rid their homes of toxins and ways to just help them live better in a rather simple and easy way and not have to breathe or eat crap that they're just taking for granted, where can they do that?
GreenNest.com.
Green?
That's our website.
Mm-hmm.
Green Nest, and we have a how-to CD as well, which will teach you how to create a healthy home.
That's right.
Well, thanks for purifying our airwaves in the neighborhood, Lisa and Ron Beres.
Thanks for having us.